Shalom Aleichem again, everybody. Ariel Tzadok here from the KosherTorah School, found online at www.koshertorah.com. Bringing to you today's daily lesson in the Sefer Yetzirah. Today is lesson number 50. We are, of course, dedicating all of these classes to the health, safety, well-being, and prosperity of everybody around the world right now, facing the trials and tribulations that we do. It's time to rebuild, everybody. Let's use the concepts and the structures that we are learning now in the Sefer Yetzirah and apply it in practical ways to help rebuild our individual lives and the world around us. So, with no further ado, let's jump right in. We are in the third chapter. We are in the second Mishnah. We read about the three mothers, and there is a profound, great, and concealed secret about them. We say that they are concealed with 6 different rings or seals, and from them comes forth the powers of air and water and fire, and from them are born the fathers, and from the fathers come forth the children. That's the Mishnah. We read something about this in our previous class, and I gave you this in our class in number 49. Today I'm going to digress. I've always talked to you about my big long 40-hour course, in which I taught the Sefer Yetzirah from the prophetic Kabbalistic point of view. And I've taught things there that I pretty much haven't taught since. That was, this 2020 right now, 12 years ago, I guess. So I'm going to share with you some meditative techniques in our little class here today. Of course, there is a handout. It's right here, as you will see. And of course, the handout, as you will see in the notes below, KosherTorah.com/PDF/SY20.50. For this is class 50.pdf. Now, what are we going to deal with? Remember the basic rule. If you want to remain in the theoretical, you will accomplish nothing. Theory is all in the mind. And if you remember, the mind corresponds to the realm of the sefirot, which are beli ma. The whole purpose of this book is to take the beli ma sefirot and to merge them into the otiot yasod. Yesod, remember, the foundation letters are not the actual letters. They are the foundation, the source of the letters. We have used, Rabbi Chaim, I should say, has used the example of a tree. You have the trunk of the tree, and then you have your branches, which branch off from it. Well, the roots of the tree, of course, everything comes from the divine. There's only one source. We've covered that a million times. This foundation of all Torah, the monotheistic message, only one God, one source, one ultimate truth, with then many branches which branch off in all the different directions. What does that mean in reality? If I want to understand something, I have to contemplate the theory and then figure out how to put it into practice, or otherwise, what good is it? So, when I want to contemplate the sefirot, what the heck are the sefirot? According to the old naturalist way, they're like numbers, and it's the combination of numbers and forms and the like. I gave an entire separate class on the first chapter of the of Sefer Yetzirah, the sefirot, in accordance to the naturalist way. Go on the course page at KosherTorah.com, you'll see that. Now, in all these different ways, as we all know, we have all different kinds of religions and doctrines and faiths and beliefs. And we're not going to discuss history here to go back step by step and unravel or dismantle the historicity of the theological truths or falsehoods of this or that belief. Because ultimately, whenever you start, as they say, throwing rocks at the glass houses of others, you better watch out, because you might find out that you too are living in a glass house. Now, Christianity and Judaism and Islam were all built from a singular source. And in all due respect, if you look at the historicity of many of the things that everyone holds sacred, well, things might not be as historical as you might want. Does that disavow or disregard the entire religion? Not as far as I'm concerned. I have found, and I'm sure you have too, people of all faiths who are righteous and good and decent moral individuals who are not interested in fighting and yelling and screaming about whose religion is right, who are not always out to go and kill everybody of a different religion or condemn you to hell or anything of the kind. Decent people. Well, how do you get to understanding that and seeing that? Well, let's take some of the stuff that we've been talking about and put it into practice. I'm going to teach you now a meditative technique. We've dabbled in this and discussed it before, but now we're going to put it all together. And once we put this now all together, you have to do it. How do I do it? Do I create a magic circle around myself and light sacred candles, call upon the names of the archangels as I'm dressed in white robes and waving incense? Good Lord, we're being rather dramatic. No, you don't have to do any of this stuff. We have to tap into the essence of the living sefirot, the living balima. Remember what balima is? It is the essence which cannot be tapped, but it can be somehow experienced. Can't grasp it per se, they're balima, but we can feel our way through it, if you will. So here, from yesterday, here's our A'Me'Sh, our 3 letters, foundation letters, which we said corresponds to the 3 other letters of Yud Kei Vav. What is the relationship of the letters to the letters? Well, if you remember, one set of letters, the 3, correspond to the fundamental elements. Remember we said right, left, center, which are symbolized as water, fire, air, thesis, antithesis, synthesis, good, bad, balance, the whole thing. These, as Rabbi Chaim has taught us, correspond to the 3 upper sefirot of the Keter, the Chochmah, and the Bina. But the whole things get a little interesting here, because when you study the Kabbalah of the Ari in a deeper way, like we discuss in our Otzot Hayim series, check out our course page, you recognize that the Keter has both a concealed and a revealed face to it. The concealed face of Keter, all right, we call that, I'm not going to get into all the details between Atik, the Ancient of Days, and the long face, Arich Ampin. We're just going to refer to the Keter in general as concealed, even though there's the concealed and the revealed in it. But we don't need the details. Don't go crazy. But Keter is going to reveal itself in Bina. Bina, as we say, is ultimately the source of Zerampin, us, if you will, above. And then, of course, you have Chochmah and Bina. But Chochmah and Bina themselves have 2 different sides to them. A side which we call up and a side which we call down. If you have the courage or the interest, you can go on to, even YouTube, and listen to my audio class on the Mochin of Passover. Go type in the YouTube Passover. You'll get the little audio lesson there, the meditative lessons of Passover. When we talk about mochin or sefirotic brains or levels of consciousness, there are ways of how these things are to be, if you will, experienced or embraced. So we use the Sefer Yetzirah technique of these 6 seals. They are, again, the 6 permutations of Aleph, Mem, Shin, which correspond to the 6 permutations of Yud, Kei, Vav, which correspond to the 6 permutations of Keter, which is dot, Chochmah, and Bina. So these correspond to those we call it sefirotic faces. When you're looking up to receive, then you're trying to grasp the keter, and that face we call arich. And as you're gazing above at Chokhmah and Bina, you look at the upper faces called Abba and Ima, mommy and daddy, respectively. And as we then tap into that, we then reverse the energy and bring it down, whereas the face of Keter is materialized through the dot, and the dot becomes experienced through the face called Zerampin, the short face, and the face of Abba, Chokhmah, is revealed in the face which looks down, called Yisrael Saba. That's meaning Grandpa Israel. And on the left column, Bina, again, when it comes down, is revealed in the face called Tivuna, or intelligence. Now, all of this are names. Names, names, names. You can go and look up all my other courses if you want deeper understanding and insights into names. But understand what we're talking about. The Hebrew word is mochin. What we're really talking about are levels of consciousness. This is the necessary preliminary step in what we call psychic ascent. How do I do it, Rabbi? You're going to ask. It's very simple. You can recite the letters in a chant. You can recite the Aleph, Mem, Shin, or the Yud, Kei, Vav. And you can recite the letters until you're blue in the face. Nothing's going to happen other than you'll lose consciousness if you turn blue in the face. You must contemplate their representative meanings. This is an exercise in our tradition called hitbo nenut, or contemplation. This is not the other form of meditation called hitbo dedut, which is mental abstraction. This is taking the focus of the mind and narrowing it and holding it in and then allowing it to expand out. Remember, we had our 3 forms? Well, that's exactly what we're doing. We're going to start from the position in silent contemplation, focusing on the literal letters and their sounds, which is a very rigid structure on the left. Breathing, calming down, takes us into the center, and in the center, that rigid structure of thought begins to become more imaginative, more contemplative, more fluid. This brings us into the right. As I'm breathing, my mind will start to float. Imagine. Active imagination, as it's called in the Jungian psychological terminology. But this is how we cultivate Ruach HaKodesh, divine inspiration. We allow our intuitive thoughts to contemplate. Okay, Aleph, Mem, and Shin corresponds to Vav and Yud and Hey. What is the relationship? What does that mean to me? In one form, this corresponds to Keter, Chokhmah and Bina, which corresponds to those sefirot called Arich, Abba and Ima. And yet in another way, it refers to the dot and the Chokhmah and the Bina, which corresponds to Zerampin, Yisrael Saba and Tavuna. What does that mean to me? You know what? You might say to yourself, I don't have enough of the understanding of these concepts. So I'm going to go back to Rabbi Bar Tzadok's KosherTorah.com page. I'm going to look into what he taught about the sefirot and their names, as he reveals in his teachings about these things. Go to KosherTorah.com, front page. Introduction to our KosherTorah School is a big, long essay that I wrote there. It's all about the sefirot and stuff. Check it out. It's free. Check out the courses that I have. Look these things up. Give yourself depth of meaning. In other words, more tools to build with. And as you have this knowledge, then that rigid knowledge which is ingrained in your mind, through the breathing process and the contemplating of these things, become more fluid in your mind. And as your mind is going to become more fluid, the sechel tenudah is going to be activated, like we talked about in our previous classes. Go back to the 4th Mishnah, the 1st chapter, and allow your mind to float. What does this mean to me? Remember who you are. You very well may be, like me, a practicing Torah-observant Orthodox Jewish individual, man or woman. Or you may not be. You may not even be Jewish. That doesn't matter. You may be a man, you may be a woman, you may even be an alien on another planet. What do I know? All I know is consciousness, souls are souls, and we all have the ability to use this technique as our tool to expand the mind and consciousness. And like I said, this is a prerequisite step for that which is going to come later. Because once you contemplate the mochin, the mind, the thought, and you experience what this means to you. Now, you could send me emails and say, hey, Rabbi, I had this great experience. What does it mean? I'm going to respond. I don't know what it means. What does it mean to you? This is very personal. This is all experiential on the individual level. Remember, way back when, we said this is why these experiences, this practice are called netivot. A netiv is an individual path at the individual psyche. This is your personal path back to God. So as you're contemplating these thoughts, these concepts, these relationships, the sefirotic faces, what they mean as we ascend above or we bring down below, what they mean in the form of Yud, K, Vav, and then K, of course, God's name as it's materialized here below, and its foundational source in A'Me'Sh above, and then ultimately above that into the what? Good question. When you contemplate this, you will somehow get a depth gut feeling within you what this actually is. Maybe you'll doze off into a little trance and you'll have a eureka moment. Some thought will pop into your head. Or you'll have a dream, an image, a vision, daydreaming. Somehow, somewhere, something is going to connect inside you. You're going to go, ah. In my personal life, I'm speaking in general, yours, mine, whatever, I've always thought like this. But now, maybe I could see it like that. You're starting to permutate letters and forms in your mind. Welcome to a greater world. And the more you do this, the more fluid you become, and the more you're able to go with the flow. And you'll be able to whip from one state of consciousness to the next. That is how it's done. So this is a little gift to you, a technique. It takes time to get the form down right, but don't focus so much on the rigidity of form to lock it up. Allow the form to become fluid. Breathing deeply, visualizing through the power of the mind, chanting through the power of sound if you so choose. Remember, you don't even have to do that, but it helps. And allow it to be experienced. Go with this. Try it. We've covered now 50 lessons, and still we're in the middle. Because when you get this down and you're able to do this, then we'll go into the greater depths of using the 3 letters and applying them in other applications, which is coming later in the chapter. And then we're going to do the same thing with the 7 doubles and eventually the 12 elementals. And you're going to have layer upon layer upon layer and moving and floating in all these different ways with all these different techniques. And when your mind is clear and strong and focused, you will be able to create a mental construct of whatever it is that you seek. And then focus on it with such power and intensity to project that psychic energy so it will ripple through the space-time and eventually find its way to materialize here in the physical world, in the forms that you seek and know. And the law of attraction will bring it to you. I just taught you a really big, what do we call that here again? Sod gadol mufla umechuse. Put it into practice. See where it goes. Review this lesson. Check out the course material. Remember, You don't need detailed rules of how to do this. What you need to do is do it. You'll trip and fall, fine, you'll get up and walk. Eventually you'll learn to walk just fine. And then you'll skip and then you'll run. Eventually you will fly. Ariel Tzadok here from the KosherTorah School, KosherTorah.com, wishing you happy travels. I'll see you above. Shalom.